I have points to discuss on Emil Hirsch, and we will discuss those. So I'm just going to let it linger here. We can have a small conversation about stuff while we post this. Oh man, we should have streamed this to Facebook. And we'll post it in the... Alright, and I guess I should probably open YouTube just to make sure I can see anything that's going on, and then we'll get started. Playlists, videos, the live stream, and there we go. Alright, so, Taylor. Alright, give me a second to introduce this video. For everybody watching, we are dissecting Speed Racer tonight. My friends know this is one of my favorite movies of all time. It came out in, I think, what, 2008? I don't know. Taylor, you didn't even do your research before you came here? Come on, man.
I can look it up.
I'm just going to say some false statistics. It came out yesterday. It is the best-selling movie of all time, grossing $10 billion in box office sales before home DVD sales. No, I'm kidding. Anyways, though, it is one of the great movies by the Wachowski siblings, the same people who did the Matrix trilogy.
It was 2008.
Okay, yeah, see, I know my Speed Racer stuff. I've only watched this movie a couple hundred times. So anyways, we get into a constant debate in my friend group of, is Speed Racer the greatest movie of all time, or is it the best movie of all time? And we can never come to... No, I'm kidding. But we get into a debate because I believe this movie is a lot better. I understand it's not a great movie. Some would hesitate to even call it a good movie. And I believe it doesn't get the love and recognition it deserves because it's a lot better of a story than a lot of people are willing to invest and look at it. So tonight we are going to talk about it. And of my personal opinion, I think this is possibly the best bad movie in the entirety of human existence. And I will, that's going to be my initial claim, that I understand there are elements about this movie that are not great. There are a lot of elements about this movie that are definitely problematic, but for the most part, out of all of those elements, this movie stands alone as fantastic among bad movies. Do you want to give your initial thoughts on it before we dive in?
My initial thoughts? Well, I've only seen this movie twice now, before we started this. Twice. I don't hold it in as such a high regard as Brandon does.
Come on, get out of here! You're in my house!
So, it's not a good movie in my opinion. when I came in and when I came in before this watching, it was not as good as a movie as what I'll give it credit for by the end.
Okay, and so that's the goal for tonight. Can we possibly change Taylor's mind? Alright, so, you want to start with our pros and cons, or do you want to start going through the movie and then come to our pros and cons last?
Let's go to our. Let's go through the movie first.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we took notes. So summarizing the movie, we'll do the introduction first. I actually took the minute marker of it.
Mm-hmm.
The introduction of the movie is 16 minutes long. And in 16 minutes, they establish, every character's motivation. They introduce you to the entirety of the world. They introduce you to every member of the main cast. They set up the conflict of the story and backstory of the world. Mm-hmm. And they do it all with, sweeping, exhilarating, on the edge of your seat action in the first 16 minutes of the movie. I think the introduction is probably one of the strongest parts of this movie on how they tell the tale of, not only what the main character, Speed Racer, wants, of course, to win the Grand Prix and, clean his family's reputation, but how every other character feels about it, as they're setting up the story, they pan into Trixie's viewpoint of, how she's connected to the story. And then they pan into Pops's viewpoint of, how angry he was at, spoiler warning, we're going to spoil the movie. Probably should have put that at the top. But they pan into Pops, how he felt about Rex and the betrayal of, everything going on with him working with the criminal underground. And then they, pan into the mom scene, and she's crying, and, how heavily that impacted the family. And you get everybody's feel, and the whole time, you're watching him race through Thunderhead, and then the commentators are probably, one of my favorite parts of the opening scene of just, how everybody has those mixed opinions of just, Rex Racer's a rat, he'll always be a rat, once a rat in my book, and then, everybody has their different opinions of just, how much this shaped the world, and then sets up for the story.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on it?
On the introduction?
The introduction.
It was, I enjoyed the world building of, hey, this is what Speed Racer is. It's a little goofy and it's a little serious, but it's more goofy than serious, I think.
That's fair.
And it does a good, it does a great, mystery of what happened to Rex. It sparks an interest, and it grabs you. The introduction grabs you as to, hey, what happened to Rex Racer? And why is he such either a good driver, a good racer, or a bad racer?
And one of my favorite parts about that I think is done so well here that you can't get in red media, except I guess unless you're reading comic books, is just the visual pans of the story. Of every scene weaves into the backstory and the current scene happening at the same time. So, a camera might pan over Speed Racer as he's making the turn, and as he makes the turn, the background blurs into the scene of his past of, what inspired him to get into a race car, and then as he finishes the turn, it's back on Speed Racer. And it's visually so great. Oh yeah, Derek probably should have said we were doing the movie Speed Racer. Well, no, it's up there. The greatest movie or the best movie. So, all right. So that's the introduction. So overall, let's give an up or down.
Okay.
The introduction. Did it work or did it not work? Because I think it worked.
The introduction worked.
Okay.
Yeah.
Presentation. That was the next thing we had on our list, and that's what I was just describing. How they present the story is so interesting because, one of the scenes, Royalton was one of the main villains was monologuing, and he's monologuing about what's going to happen to Speed Racer and all the terrible things that are going to befell him. And rather than just listening to the monologue, they blend different time parts of the story. As he's monologuing, you're watching Speed Racer go through that race that he's describing, and you're watching an action sequence.
I was conflicted about that scene in particular.
The Fuji one?
Yeah, well, Royalton was. I don't know if it was the editing, but you go forward in time, you go back in time, you go forward in time again after the race, and it could be less confusing, I think.
Yeah, I can see that. The presentation, it is non-linear storytelling, which I believe is the proper term for it, which is great in some aspects when you can pull it off well. For the most part, maybe it's because I've watched this movie 100 times, I felt like it works in most aspects of the movie. In other areas, we were talking about the presentation, and this is one I will get off of. I will, stop saying Speed Racer is the greatest. There are areas where I think the visual storytelling of the movie is so fantastic, and then it doesn't have the same consistency all the way through. So when you get to the Casa Cristo race, which is a huge race in the in about the middle of the movie, there are about 2 fight scenes within about 10 minutes of each other. And the fight scenes are, one is just linearly told straightforward, no like sweeping moving camera. It is just the straight up gritty action sequence of the fight scene, which I give it to the Wachowski siblings. They can choreograph and shoot an action scene.
Is that the one?
That's the ninjas.
The ninjas. Right?
Yeah.
Not the one in the middle of the race.
Yeah, the one in the middle of the race then. And then 10 minutes later, we get another fight scene where they're fighting gangsters and it is a fist-to-fist fight scene. They're fighting gangsters in a mountaintop area. And the camera is... I just felt like how they presented that fight scene was so much better than any other action sequence in the movie.
But it was in the middle of a race.
It was in the middle of a race. All right, this is
would you really have time to get in a fist fight?
This is something
in the middle of a race?
We need to address about this movie. That and I think this list should have been. We should have probably tackled our cons, because this is on my cons list. So it is a sci-fi movie, Speed Racer.
Yeah.
And to make any sci-fi work, you need your mumbo jumbo sci-fi spiel of like how the science works, just to explain this is the reason we can do these things, of like how the cars slide, their dynamics and stuff. Every car has essentially a jet engine on the back of it in this movie. So jets can go thousands of miles per hour, and in one line a character drops, this car can reach speeds of 800 miles per hour, like no other car before it can. And when the human body can't possibly perceive the upper limits of what that car is capable of doing. So I imagine that, if you can push the car a lot further than actually, how fast everybody else is racing beyond, what's safe, winding up mountainsides. So I wrote that one off as, they're better drivers, but they have jet engine cars, and, they can blast their way back on the track.
Physics is not a strong suit for Speed Racer.
yeah. All right, so before we get into the thoughts about that, the presentation of the story, the way the camera sweeps, character portrait, and this is probably the best description of this. It will have a character portrait on the on the screen, if you see me, and then as I'm doing stuff and moving across the screen behind me, the backstory or other tertiary information is playing and moving, in so much that something in the movie is always moving and always keeping always keeping your attention going. There's very few dry moments of this movie, except for the romance scenes. But presentation. Do you think the presentation of the story works or doesn't work? I think it works. It's my personal opinion. It's one
with the cuts of the visual face moving.
Yeah,
I don't think it works That's personally, that's not my style of movie.
It's very surrealistic.
It's not just the faces, but the outdoors is very like the sky's too blue and the grass is too green.
All right, Taylor, I'm gonna need you to get out of here on that one. No, I'm kidding. Okay,
But that's true.
we probably should have did initial thoughts first. Do you have initial thoughts on your thing?
I just said that I liked the beginning, like when the young Speed was taking the test.
Okay.
And it just reminded me of like blah blah blah.
All right. So my initial thoughts on it. Of course, I already gave my initial thoughts on this. Like, I love this movie. I think it's great. There are flaws in it that we will address later. Themes brought up in the movie. What themes did you pick up on? Then I'll discuss my themes.
I picked up on the integrity of the race, the love of the race, and not compromising to win as themes, and that it was interspersed with a lot of goofiness and a lot of like almost political industrial stuff.
Hey, I want to say, Derek said tighten up and make an outline. We did. We have an entire outline, and we all took notes on it of just like, hey, this is what we're going to do. So, all right. So my themes that I picked up on, of course, the importance of family is a huge piece of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then morality, like you were talking about the integrity of the race. I think as far as like philosophy goes, it's commented on absolute morality. Of like the big theme moving in the movie is Speed Racer's conflict, or rather the big conflict is Speed Racer's issues with corporations trying to fix races as far as deciding who wins the race before the race even happens. And they want to contract him into this race fixing, and it goes fundamentally against everything he believes in. And it's really a discussion on like an artist versus selling out.
Yeah.
And like staying true to your passion and pursuing that passion above all else. Why I think it comments on absolute morality, because when Speed Racer ruins Royalton Industries, because spoiler warning,
For a 10-year-old movie.
Yeah, for a 10-year-old movie, spoiler warning. When he ruins, Royalton Industries, you saw how many, like, probably thousands of people are working inside of Royalton Industries. Like, all those people are going to be out of a job. So if race fixing is a net good thing that gave all of those people a job, and Speed Racer acting on his morals of just like, I will not fix races, put all of those people out of a job, is it a good thing? And the movie never touches on that. The movie never touches on that, which is why I say it is more so absolute morality of like, always do the right thing no matter what the situation is, the lawful good, never cheat the rules or anything. Yeah. Where I feel if I would have like written this, I would have had some like gray area of like, is this the right thing to do? Because Royalton's a horrible person, but look at all these people who have better lives because of him.
Mm-hmm.
We only saw one person have their life ruined because of him. Well, two people have their lives ruined because of him, and we saw bajillions of people who had jobs. So I think it comments on morality of just like always do the right thing. And yeah, so as far as like addressing those themes, do you feel like it did
I thought it did a great job.
Yeah, I thought it did a really good job too of painting Speed Racer as not just a racer but also an artist. Okay, so the next one, actor performance.
Oh boy.
You want to go first, or you want me to go first? Because I've watched this movie 100,000 times, and I have so many comments on actor performance.
I'll let you go first.
Okay.
Actor performance.
So, first thing, Young Speed Racer does not need to be in this movie. Young Speed Racer is probably the worst kid actor I have ever seen. He is dull, he's uninteresting, his facial expression never changes, he never, his line delivery sucks. It is the worst kid acting I've ever seen, and I feel bad about saying that because this is cataloged on the internet forever, and, well, he's 18 now. Yeah, he's an adult,
he's
so,
18 now.
Yeah. And it's not the script, because Young Speed Racer is written really well. I think all of the characters are written really well. There are just two performances I draw issue with. It's Young Speed Racer and Adult Speed Racer. Emil Hirsch is the actor who plays Speed Racer, and he's problematic enough on his own of, all his media scandals and everything, so we're not going to talk about that. Pretty bad person as it stands. But his performance as Speed Racer is arguably worse than him as a person. There is not a moment where he emotes. There's a single moment where he emotes where his facial expression changes. But otherwise, he delivers all his lines like this. It's like a really bad, confused William Shatner. And I hate it. Yeah. I cannot stand his performance.
He has no range.
Yeah. That's a good description. He has no range. But now those are my negatives. I will say, overwhelmingly, there are more positives in actor performance than negatives. John Goodman is in this movie. And oh my gosh, does he deliver. If he does not, at least make you want to cry once or twice in this movie, when he's just talking about family values with his son, it is... I wish he was my dad. And I love my dad, if he watches this. I love my dad as is. But, John Goodman. Who wouldn't want dad John Goodman? Watch the movie. His performance speaks for itself. It's John Goodman. You get what you pay for.
Is a jewel.
There is the actor who plays young Rex Racer. I never looked up his name because he's only in the movie for a few scenes, but he is so good and he sells Rex Racer. He carries everything with Young Speed Racer. He sells young Rex Racer great. Range from dramatic to laughable to inspiring. He gets it.
Yeah.
There's one scene in my cons that I have that I'll mention later about young Rex Racer, but for the most part, actor performance, great.
He's spot on. Yeah.
Susan Sarandon plays Mom Racer, and oh my goodness gracious, I believe she delivers also. Just as well as John Goodman. She gets one scene in this movie where she has a one-on-one with the main actor.
Speed.
Yeah, and she carries it, It's just one of those moments, you feel that bubble in your chest. It didn't bring me to tears, but I was almost there. I loved it. Christina Ricci, you get what you pay for. She's a fantastic actress. The only thing that makes the romance scenes somewhat bearable is Christina Ricci. She's got everything from head gestures to tone shifts to,
She makes up for the lack of chemistry.
Yeah. And I wanted to say, there was no chemistry between the Emil Hirsch and Christina Ricci, but that's not true. Because everything on her side of Trixie performing towards, Speed Racer is fantastic. It's just, on his side, there's nothing going back. All the electricity is one-sided. But those are my thoughts on actor performance. What do you have?
I agree with John Goodman and Susan. Is it
Sarandon?
Sarandon?
Yeah.
Yeah. Those two actors are probably the best in the movie, in my opinion. Everyone else is mostly bad. The younger Rex is good, but he's not in it that long.
Yeah.
And the kid who plays
Spritle? Yeah, the younger brother.
He is just awful.
Alright, that's fair. So, for actor performances, what are you going to say? Thumbs down?
Thumbs down, yeah.
See, I want to say thumbs down, but I feel like John Goodman did so well in the movie that it makes up for the main protagonist sucking.
John Goodman does well, Susan does well, and the monkey does well.
The monkey does well.
But other than that...
Yeah, I will say actor performances, I'll actually be in that boat. As much as I loved Susan Sarandon, John Goodman, and a few other actors in this movie, I would have recast a lot of people if I had been shooting it.
And I don't think that the movie used Christina Ricci
enough,
or as well as they should.
So here's a thing, for a little just like fanfare about this movie. Right after the Speed Racer movie came out, there was a very popular racing series called Need for Speed. And rather than making a Speed Racer Need for Speed game built on Christina Ricci's performance of Trixie, they made a Need for Speed Trixie's Time Speed Racer Need for Speed game with her as the main protagonist, which is just like, how garbage do you have to be as a protagonist in your movie to have your, your romantic interest be the one who like
to be the lead in the game.
It's like, you know what? We don't want you. We want her. So yeah, actor performances. I will say a lot of people could have used recasting. So we have the conclusions next, but I will side note. Did you want to talk about the villain, Royalton, E.P. Royalton?
Yeah, we can talk about him.
Okay, so I went first last time. Do you want to give your thoughts on him?
Yeah. Outside of John Goodman and Susan, I thought he was the next best actor.
Yeah, I really loved his performance.
I think you said before during the watching that he could be like Palpatine.
Yeah, he could have been Darth Sidious.
So I thought he's a great Royalton. And on a side note, with I really love the names. Like Detective, Inspector.
Oh yeah, Inspector Detector.
Inspector Detector, Royalton.
Yeah, he's a rich guy. Yeah, Speed Racer. So for the villain is a business mongrel by the name of E.P. Royalton Esquire, and he just sells it. He sells it so well.
Does sell it. My
favorite thing about him as a villain is that murky water of like how much you want to like him. Like that scene where he comes to the family's home, and the opening scene, he comes to the family's home, he shows up with gifts for everybody, he eats breakfast with them, and he just has this like loving moment, like just talking back to him with like how much he cares about his company. It's like the most important thing to him. Yeah. And it's just like, God, you really want to like him. He's such a great schmoozer. And then you see his horns come out and like how much of a Satan he is, of just like, I'm going to fulfill your pleasures so you can do evil for me. And I just think as a villain, he was such a good character, and it was a very behind the scenes type of thing. Like he interacts with Speed Racer twice in the entire movie. Mm-hmm. And then other than that, he's pulling the strings from behind the scene the whole time. And, but this whole, as he's doing it, you feel such like an emotional connection to like the things he's causing to the Racer family, of like, he's not doing any of them directly, but he might as well be there, pointing the gun at their head.
Yeah.
Villain, I'd say it's got a good villain.
The villain's thumbs up.
Okay, so, we put conclusions for the next part, but we actually meant the conclusion of the movie, the climax.
Yeah.
So for the climax is a 20-minute non-stop race.
That's so good.
And and so they borrow on the same thing that they do for the introduction. How the introduction sets up different aspects of the story from every character's perspective. They start telling that non-linear story of telling 2 different timelines at the same time of all these characters interacting leading up to the race. And then the moment the race kicks off, it just doesn't stop for 15 minutes until, he scoots over the finish line.
Like, I wrote down as a note that the final race is like Mario Kart, but like on speed.
Yeah, Mario Kart on cocaine. They're racing basically missiles. Like, they have jet engines on the back of them, and they can reach speeds of 800 miles per hour. Yeah. They're basically driving missiles with wheels. That is what they're doing. But the conclusion, Wachowski siblings can shoot an action scene.
They can, yeah.
Like, every hit of the car, every turn, everything feels so dramatic that I don't have anything to comment on other than it was amazing.
I agree. Like the action scenes, the coloring, the flashing lights though. That's kind of
I've got I have colors in my pros and cons of like I liked them in some areas of the movie and then didn't like them in others.
I agree.
So conclusions, thumbs up.
Conclusions are thumbs up.
Okay. So let's summarize. So I said the introduction worked, the presentation worked for me. The themes the movie touched on throughout of it, I thought they did a good job. I gave it a thumbs down on the actor performances. I believe the conclusion worked well. So 4 out of 5. It's not the best movie ever, but it's pretty much the. No, I'm kidding. 4 out of 5. It's got more aspects that work for it than aspects that don't work for it. But it's still got a lot of things that don't work for it that we will talk about. But to summarize for me, I think that's why I love this movie so much. Is it's just a great action movie, and I feel like a lot of people would hesitate to call it that. But I mean, it's got fight sequences. It's got car chases. It's got, great race sequences, and it's a great action movie that really dives into the characters, because every character gets a pretty, in-depth, just emotional ballad the whole time. Like, they don't go into every character's backstory, but by the end of the movie, emotionally, you know where everybody stands. And I think for that, it's like, for me, I watched this movie before the Fast and Furious movies came out, and it's like a good Fast and the Furious movie. That's, for me, I really enjoy it. It's always going to be on, my list of, favorite movies. You want to summarize your thoughts on it?
My summary is that my second watching, I liked it a lot more than my first watching of it.
Well, wait till you get to your 100th watching of it.
I don't know about that, but I enjoyed the themes. I think I also got a 4 out of 5 thumbs up on the categories that we have.
Okay,
but I am still not as
well. I think you were. Yeah, I think you were 3 out of 5 because you said presentation down.
That's right, 3 out of 5. But I'm not as attached
to
the movie as you are.
Okay, so let's go through our pros and cons, and then let's give it a star rating, because why not? Everybody does star ratings. Okay, so pros. Let's do our cons first, and then end with our pros, so we don't look like negative Nancys.
Okay, yeah.
Do you want to start with your cons, or do you want?
Well, I'll start.
Okay, yeah. Go ahead.
I did not like the kid speed.
You're right.
He was a con.
I got that one at the top of my list too.
Let's see, the I put the visuals of everything outside of the race and the like the CGI, the goofy scenes at Royalton's with the racers working out and stuff.
Okay.
The CGI didn't know what it wanted to do, and I think that the movie was. I think it showed that in the movie that the directors didn't know what they wanted to do with not the theme of it, but the I don't know
like the overall like visuals or the overall like CGI feel of it.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay. So what's your next one then?
The next one is that the segues and the.
This is the best part where the segues.
No.
Oh wait, the segues of the people were riding.
Yeah,
Okay.
the people,
Yeah.
the
I thought
people
you were
were
talking
riding.
about like how the scene went from scene to scene.
No. Let's see the stereotypes of the racers.
Yeah, that's fair. I've got the Viking headhunters on there.
Kind of racist, but
Americans love money, Taylor. Come on.
as they're dressed up like World War I veterans.
Americans love war, Taylor. Come
What?
on.
And that the whole stop and fight scene from that race is just unforgivable.
Ah.
As is
Okay.
Spritel, his. I didn't like Spritel's
Character.
character.
Yeah, I didn't like Spritel, is what
Yeah.
you can say. That's fine.
I didn't like Spritel.
So, my cons. The Wachowski siblings taking on this project. For a start, why? They didn't have to do this. I love that they did, but they made a Speed Racer movie in their style for, they aimed it at a younger audience. And it's just like, one, the people who watch Speed Racer are not young children anymore. So why are you targeting a young child audience?
That's what I would.
Oh, how you feel about the visuals?
Yeah, like it also goes into Spritel and
The Chim Chim?
Spritel and Chim Chim for the younger. It's kind of like Episode 1.
Oh, yeah. Episode
Well,
1 of Star Wars.
Where it goes into the politics of it and also has Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah, and that's what I would say. Like, they wrote a movie, like, if you just pay attention to the storyline, they wrote a movie for an adult audience with, like, very interesting political games being played in the background with Royalton of, like, stocks and everything.
Yeah.
I love all the foreshadowing they do with, like, you know, the business deals.
Mm-hmm.
But it's in it's a kid's movie, and it's just like, it's very weird that the audience they picked.
Well, it didn't know what it wanted to tailor to.
Yeah, exactly. It's got things in there for everyone where I feel like it would have been a better movie if it pointed at a specific audience and said, we're after you.
Exactly.
Young Speed Racer, we've already said our piece on that. Young Speed
Yeah.
Racer was garbage. I like what he contributed to the story as a character. I could not stand his performance. There's a scene with Young Speed Racer and Rex Racer early in the movie, Young Rex. And I will say Young Rex Racer is such a gem in this movie, but the one scene that I did not like, Young Speed Racer hands him a package, he hears it, and it's like it's a ticking time bomb, and he puts it in a mini car, goes and grabs a mop, breaks the handle, puts it under the ignition pedal, sticks it in, gets it stuck in reverse, and then sends this cart reversing out, and the cart goes about 20 feet and explodes. The same amount of time, he could have heard it and threw it.
in less amount of
Yeah,
time.
exactly. I'm just like, why? I mean, it looked cool as an action sequence, but that scene stuck out to me. The names of the movie, you like them. I never paid attention to them till I tried to explain them to somebody else in summary. And I was just like, okay, yeah, this is E.P. Royalton. He's a rich businessman who Royalton, and he's okay. Yeah, this is Speed Racer. He drives cars really. Speed Racer. This is Inspector Detector. His job is to inspect and detect. And, saying the names out loud, it gets a little goofy. But that's just the series of Speed Racer. Mm-hmm. The Viking Headhunters were I loved the fight scene they had with them in the Casa Cristo race. Yeah. But they were the worst thematically because it's just like the Viking. There's a scene where the race fixers bribe a bunch of bounty hunters to take Speed Racer out of a race. And there are Americans that drive cars. They look like war veterans. There's they sex workers. I don't know what the flying foxes were. And then there were Vikings that also got bribed that race in the WRL, the World Racing League or whatever. The WRL, the World Racing League. They're Vikings. And he bribes the Vikings with mink furs. And it's just like, they're just enamored by these furs. And it's like, you have a jet car. It can go 800 miles an hour. You're driving a missile. Why are you a Viking? Why are furs buying your loyalty? You have a jet car. So that one got me off. And then my last con was John Goodman. As amazing as he is throughout this movie, he sumo wrestles a ninja at one point in this movie, and he drops the line, like, somebody asks, was that a ninja? And he's like, more like a nanja. I wrote that as a con. Alright, do you want to go through your pros?
Yeah, I'll go through my pros.
Okay.
I loved the music in the movie. The music was amazing. It pops.
Okay.
The visuals of the racing and in the track. Mm-hmm. I loved the designs of the tracks.
Yeah.
Those were fun. John Goodman. He's always
John Goodman is John Goodman.
He's a great actor to watch. I loved the monkey in the movie. The monkey was one of my favorite parts of the movie. But just take out the kid. Keep the monkey.
Keep the monkey. Take out the kid. Okay.
And I loved the ninja fight.
The ninja fight was good. Yeah.
I loved John Goodman sumo wrestling the guy. Like body slamming the guy. But I agree. I didn't like
the Nanja line.
I loved everything else about that fight.
Okay, so my pros. The intro, of course, I love the intro. In 16 minutes, this movie does more with its intro than any other movie I've ever seen. It's concise, it tells everything it needs to tell, and it's interesting the whole time through. I like what they do with colors for most of the movie. And I wrote that as a pro. I just wish they would have later used color as a theme rather than just for like visual pizzazz. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, I think the colors they do choose to use are interesting in the places they use them. Trixie, Christina Ricci's character, is fantastic. She carries every romance scene and she makes them watchable. And then the moment they put her on the racetrack in Casa Cristo, she just steals the thunder. Like, going up the curve. It was a great, like... What am I trying to say? Like, span of her acting. Yeah. To get from one place into another place. Yeah, and just like what she's capable of doing. I love the family dynamics. I love like how emotional and well connected the whole entire family is in the movie. I wrote Trixie a second time because, gosh darn, I would skip through those romance scenes if it was not for Trixie, because she has 2 of them where I'm just like, thank you, Christina Ricci, thank you. Royalton, we talked about him as a villain. I thought he was a very well done villain. I wrote believable family dynamics a second time because it just hit a second time. Like, there are moments when just like the family talking to each other or hanging out, you're just like, that's how a family interacts. Or at least that's like how my wacky family interacts. This movie does a really good job of foreshadowing. I think it does it makes use of foreshadowing amazingly. John Goodman, an absolute gem. Not enough good things can be said about his performance in this movie. And my final pro is he has a scene where he sumo wrestles a ninja, and somebody asks him, was that a ninja? And he says, more like a nanja. I liked that line as much as I hated it. So I wrote it as a pro also. So in summary, I'll give mine first. Well, not in summary, we already summarized. Stars. Out of 4 stars, I say 4 stars. It's got everything I want in my action movie. It's got a pretty female lead for, the main romance interest. Trixie's fantastic. It's got great action sequences. It's got great car sequences. The world building's great. The story grips you. And it just never stops moving. It's everything I want out of an action movie. 4 out of 4 stars for me, personally.
Okay.
You can give it the 2 stars, and I won't feel bad, because Spritle himself can take away 2 stars.
Yeah. I love your enthusiasm for the movie, and the appreciation that you have for the movie has rubbed off on me some. So I'm gonna give it 2.5 stars.
2.5 stars. You know what? I'll take it. And that's my main goal. It's not as bad as you think it is. It could not be a great movie, but it's a little bit better than you think. So in summary, watch it, enjoy it, pay attention to the story. Hope you enjoyed this. Thank you. Speed Racer, the greatest movie or the best? Probably just the best.
It was a fun time.
All right, yeah. And we're going to end there. There you go. Thank you for watching. Bye.